Welcome back to Studio Chatter. We all have our share of our favorite Fiesta Day stories, and our next guests have more than most of us combined. Welcome Lenna and John Mendehall to the program. Welcome, guys.
Mendenhall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is going to be
My first time meeting. I'm so excited. All the stories are going to be new.
I want to ask right out of the gate, what's your first Fiesta Days memory?
My very first Fiesta Days
go
memory?
back in
Very
time.
first?
Yep.
And do you remember the year?
It would have been probably about 1950.
No, you're not serious.
Seriously. My grandma and grandpa lived here in Spanish Fork. I lived in Draper at the time, but we would come down for the celebration. And what I remember the most is the parade and the carnival. Mm-hmm. And then they only had four places on the park that you could get food, and they'd be assigned to wards in Spanish Fork. There were two steaks.
Oh, yes.
So there would be two from one steak and two from another steak. And it's pretty much just hamburgers, hot dogs, and they like to cut up ice cream and dip it in chocolate and roll it in nuts. And that's what I remember eating, is that ice cream sundae on a stick.
How old do you think you were?
I think I was probably 5 or 6.
No way.
I was born in 52, so it would have been about.
It was probably back then
57,
too, like it was one day. Now it's 2 weeks, and that was just like a parade. Do you remember the rodeo? Would you go back?
No, I didn't. I don't remember going to the rodeo
so the
until
parade.
later. But
okay,
yeah,
Lenna,
we went to the
what
rodeo.
about you?
Same.
Okay.
I do remember being in the parade when I was about 5, because our LDS church
Yes.
was sponsoring it. Our ward, Palmyra Ward, won the miniature parade.
So you guys made floats?
Yeah, so
Oh.
I got
So
to be
exciting.
on the float that year. It was probably about 1958.
It's so neat to be a part of stuff like that.
But it's like you're speaking a different language when you talk to other people that are outside of the state, and you're talking about steaks and words and Pioneer Day, and they're like,
Where?
what are these
Some
things?
people here think it's a national holiday. Like, my husband will not be off work or someone, and they're like, you have to work on the 24th?
That's sick and wrong.
Certainly you're going to take it as a floating holiday, right? It's your floating holiday, of course.
It's
So
One experience we had is when our kids were little, and we used to park where it was Will's Foodland. I remember pulling up there because we'd set our family in front of like where MVP is.
Okay.
And the store was closed, of course, because it was our celebration. And I remember a car pulling up, and we were getting out, packing treats and chairs and whatnot. And this person went up to the door of Will's to open it, or to go in. And it was locked, and they turned to me and said, "What is going on here?" And I says, "It's the 24th of July."
And he's like,
She says, "Yeah, tomorrow's the 25th." I says, "Okay." Then I noticed that their car license plate was from California.
So
They had no idea it was our state holiday.
It's a big deal. I think if
Yeah.
you're from Spanish Fork, you may schedule a vacation once during the 24th. But once you do that, you never do it again. Because there's so many memories.
Right, and I grew up in Provo, so we're actually scheduled to go to California during the 24th, and all of us now that live here, me and my children, were like, why would they schedule
I know,
this?
who does
We're not torn between going to Disneyland and staying here for the 24th, and it's real.
Well, it sounds like that decision
is
will be made
It
for you.
will be made for
So-
me probably here soon.
And you know, I have brothers and sisters that live in Salt Lake Valley, and they'll bring their entire family down, and you'll hear their kids when they hit about teenagers age, and they start going, "This is a podunk little thing, you know, and why are we down here?" But they come every year.
And then
they
once
don't
they're
miss
married,
it.
they always
Then
come
they always
back.
And now the grandkids come with them, you know, and so it's a special feeling. And you've probably run into this, Stacy, that other cities cannot believe what Spanish Fork does for the money that we spend. And it has to do with the volunteerism and all of the people that donate their time and talents and energies to a great celebration. everybody
really
else
is
says, how do you
community.
afford that? You know, how do you afford all these things?
It's true. But you guys were right in the forefront of being those main volunteers as the Fiesta Days chairman in 2015, which meant you served in 2014. You were the main chairman in 15, and then the past chairman in 16. So it's a 3-year commitment
It is.
Yes.
of meetings every month.
Every
but
month.
what did you learn from that experience? What do you feel like you walked away with?
A lot of, just like we said, the spirit of volunteerism. I mean, you can't, there's no way it can be done without that help. And just the cooperation and the time. I mean, the time that's,
We had no idea the time that it takes.
I don't think anybody
When the 24th of
does.
July is over, you've only got a couple of weeks, and we come back and and you pick it apart and say, what could we have done better, and what really worked well.
That's a good
And by
leader to do that.
September, we're right back
We're
at
right
it
back
again,
at
right?
Yes.
planning for the next
So-
next year.
And what a great staff Spanish Fork City has.
Yeah.
It holds that together year after year, and the 3-year commitment on the committee is a really fun thing because the first year you're learning, and you're drinking from a fire hose.
Yes.
And then as you get to your 3rd year, you know, you're helping the others, and it's a really cool thing, you know, to have all of that, and to be part of the decisions that are made. That's another thing that we had no idea of. You know, what color are the shirts going to be that we wear?
that's
You know, that's the biggest
Like
fight
the
we have.
details, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
matter, but then it's like,
It
oh my
does
goodness,
matter.
that's a whole day of those
Coming
little
up
mini.
with the logo.
The logo.
yeah.
The theme.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
are like big things. Or going through the
It really
magazine
is.
and do we want to add a new event? And I think that's why I reference in 1958 it was one day, and then these chairmen, let's add another day, let's add this, and now it's like this big 2-week celebration. Whereas a year or two ago we're like, we need to like chop. This is like
Take her
huge.
down.
We
Take
gotta
it
take
all
it down a little.
But isn't that the element that you just love so
I
much?
do.
So the pride and progress. I mean, I think that's what I love about the 3-year commitment, because you're not getting stuck in the old, and it is that constant movement to the progress. And what
So
did you
true.
learn this year, and the turnover, and
then pass
you're-
it down
and then
to
passing it
someone
down,
else.
and yes, so
Right.
it's the kind of the past, present, and the future. So that it's that constant
like that
turnover
analogy.
to the new and the old, and
right.
but it's like this little baby that you're handing, but you
That's right.
that you care for, and you're just
It's
not
like
going to hand it
quadruple.
off to whomever. Well, we see kind of the same thing with the Miss Spanish Fork organization, because you just don't want to hand it off to just whomever, because there's so much care
Yeah.
and pride and progress that you take with it, and then that spirit of volunteerism, and then all those things. So,
Yep.
oh gosh, yes, just
It's
all those things, all that hard work that you put into it. So
And there are things that
you.
start and other things that end. And sometimes they're 1-year flashes, and other times, you know, there can be things that
tradition.
become a tradition. You know, the Speedy Spaniard race, we remember when that started the first time, you know.
really?
Oh, yeah.
One
And-
year I even ran it.
And
Good for
finished.
you.
She finished.
I've never done it, Lenna, so good job.
She left her breakfast up on Poplar Lane. but
no.
she finished.
What's some of your favorite events that happened during our 2 weeks?
We've talked about a couple of those since Pete asked us to come down and share some of our memories. Probably the one that we will remember the most is we were instrumental in getting a choir to come and perform in Spanish Fork. The rodeo arena was just a year or so old, and it was recognized as one of the best venues in Utah County. And there's a choir called Millennial Choirs and Orchestra. They represent 5 states, and Utah is one of them. They're in Arizona, California, Texas, and Idaho as well. And our son happens to be a conductor of this choir. This choir is performed in New York in
Carnegie Hall.
Carnegie Hall, and in front of the Jefferson Memorial in Washington, D.C., and in all the states. And they are just an amazing choir, and we thought, wouldn't that be cool if they could come and perform here in Spanish Fork, because they're very in demand. And it worked out that they did not have a tour that summer, and so we got them to come. And it was kind of interesting because we had gone to some of their spring tours. They sing a lot of patriotic stuff. And so they had this show that they had put on called To Be American. Not an American, but To Be American. And Glenn Beck, the radio host, had been the announcer of that program. And he had laryngitis and couldn't come. But he was in the area. He was actually at the performance. And we had it down there. And the thing was interesting about it is that they had performed in all these different venues, but they'd never been in a rodeo arena, in the dirt. The guy who's the manager of the entire choir, he's full-time employed with them to do all of the things that are there.
Production
and that
manager,
particular year, the only time that we could have this was on a Friday night, and Thursday night was the flag retirement ceremony, and Saturday the rodeo started. So we had a 24-hour period to do all of the staging of these. There were 350 performers. Wow. And a 100-piece orchestra that was set up there. So we had to put a stage on the floor, and we had all of the choir up behind the bucking chutes. Well, that's not very attractive, so we got some bunting and put it there. And as soon as the flag ceremony was done, they came out and covered up the coals with dirt. And thought that will put the fire out.
Oh no.
Well, we were supposed to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning to start this setup. There were dozens and dozens of microphones, towers with the speakers on them, towers for the lighting and all this other stuff that had to be done. And this guy and I were the only two that were there about 10 to 7, and he was standing down in the dirt like this. And I said, "What's wrong?" And he says,
The cold.
"Well," he says, "look at the smoke coming out of the dirt." And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, I don't know whether to set this thing up or whether to go back to the hotel and get some hot dogs and have a weenie roast."
Oh.
But the thing that, and they were fantastic, and to this day we have people that say, "Well,
remember that.
is the MCO going to come again?"
Yeah.
And the mayor is one of them. Steve Leifson will say, "When are we going to get those guys back? When are we going?" Well, I don't know that it'll ever work again to bring them back where they're.
It was just right.
Yeah, their
timing and
schedule worked.
perfect.
But the final song that they sang was a very patriotic song. And of course, all of us in Spanish Fork are aware of the Canyon Wind, right? Mm-hmm. It's about 9:30, 10 o'clock. It's dark. And they have that huge flag at the north end of the stadium. And it had been just hanging there all night, beautiful. Mm-hmm. And as the choir got to the crescendo of that performance, all of a sudden the wind just picked up just a little bit and blew the flag straight out.
I remember that.
And it was just fluttering. And everybody we talked to said, "How did you do that? Did you have a fan on that?
You had a big fan. I know
Or did you have a rope on that you hung it out there?" And all it was the Canyon Wind. And somehow that happened that just on cue, that flag started to flutter and blow.
Beautiful.
And so it was really cool. And that was probably our best memory of our days in Fiesta Days. But we'll tell them about the dad that came up to you.
Oh, yeah.
He was from Provo.
You've got the long line of moms and kids having
Grandmas.
to get the bag that had the tickets to go around to all of the free stuff.
Right,
Everything
right.
is free. And father came up and pulled out his wallet and says, how much is this? How much is this? We says, "No, put it back, put it away." Karen and I, and he says, "Well, you don't go anywhere without paying for it."
Right.
I says, "Well, you do here. You do at this."
That is so neat.
That's
Yeah.
a great memory.
It was always
Well,
fun.
unfortunately, that's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for sharing.
But I've got more.
Yeah, I know. There's so much more, right? We're just so happy to have
Thanks, John
Fiesta
and
Days
Lenna.
this
Yeah,
year.
thank
Thank you.
We're
so
glad
much.
to be
you.
here, and we hope that Fiesta Days continues the great tradition. This year's going to be different, but it'll still be.
It'll be here.
Absolutely.
It'll
Well,
happen.
thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's more Studio Chatter coming up.